the Orange County Labor Federation, Gloria Alvarado. Thank you for joining us. And from Legal Aid at Work, Jenna, Gerry, and George Warner. Thank you for joining us as well. As we all know, California is taking truly extraordinary steps in the fight against COVID-19. And together we are meeting this challenge. We are staying at home. We are abiding by the state's stay-at-home order. And together we are bending the curve. We know that our statewide stay-at-home order is saving lives. We also know that it has been a tremendous sacrifice for so many of California's families, workers, and small businesses. In the last 4 weeks alone, 2.7 million Californians filed for unemployment insurance. That is truly staggering. And we are doing everything that we can to help people in this crisis, both at the state and the federal level. So tonight, our conversation will be focused on applying for unemployment insurance and on other resources that are available to you at this time. Before we jump into your questions, I'd love our panelists to each take a moment to introduce yourselves and make any opening remarks. Congresswoman Porter, we'll start with you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your leadership in this moment.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Petrie-Norris, for inviting me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to our constituents about how the federal and state government are working together to help families. I want to just talk briefly about the CARES Act, which is the most recent bill of 3 now that Congress has passed to address the coronavirus pandemic. And one of the things that we did in the CARES Act was expand federal unemployment benefits by $600 per week and extended the period of time that you can receive unemployment by 4 months. So that's really some additional help for those who are dealing with being unemployed right now. We also expanded the definition of who's a worker to include people who are independent contractors or maybe employed in the gig economy. So we're hoping that those benefits, which will be delivered through the state unemployment system but funded through the federal government, will be really helpful to people right now. And the second thing I wanted to flag was that the CARES Act, we passed direct financial payments to help families make ends meet. And so these payments are $1,200 for a single person, up to $2,400 for a married couple, plus $500 for each additional child under $500. And those economic impact payments are already starting to hit bank accounts of families right here in Orange County today. I've been really focused on oversight, on making sure that the $500 billion that was allocated to the Secretary of the Treasury to help companies is going to make sure that companies are keeping people on payroll. And that's what we saw with the way that the airline industry help has been structured. They need to keep people on payroll in order to receive the help from the federal government. And I think that's a model that we ought to be applying to companies across the country as they come seeking help from our federal government, is they ought to be putting workers first and making sure this $500 billion doesn't turn into a corporate slush fund or a Wall Street bailout, and that it's not being used to fund things like stock buybacks or executive compensation. So those are the things that I've been focusing on, and I'm really, really grateful to be here tonight to talk with you about the importance of the federal government providing help to states as well as directly to families, and also about the important role that Congress has to play in doing oversight over the help that's coming families' way. So thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you so much. And before we jump into those, I'd love our other panelists to briefly introduce themselves as well. Gloria Alvarado, thank you for being here.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting us to participate. Gloria Alvarado, the Executive Director of the Orange County Labor Federation, representing 93 local unions and also our communities, their families, and of course, every single worker out there in Orange County. The Orange County Labor Federation has been open 24/7, literally, assisting with unemployment applications and food distribution weekly. So we encourage everyone, and especially your constituents, if they're interested in obtaining some assistance, to please join us and give us a call. We're doing this to keep everybody safe by appointment only, and I'm actually sharing the information right now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much. And from the Legal Aid at Work, we have Jenna, Gerry, and George Warner. Thank you both for being here. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourselves and about the work that you all do?
George,
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much for having us. My name is George Warner. I'm a lawyer at Legal Aid at Work, which is a nonprofit law firm based in San Francisco, but that assists low-income working families across the state of California. I'll be happy to answer questions about unemployment insurance and pandemic unemployment assistance later in this event. But I just want to flag that if there's a question that's not answered tonight, there are a ton of resources available on our website, legalaidatwork.org. The unemployment-focused resources are legalaidatwork.org/unemployment. And most of those resources are in English, Spanish, and Chinese. If you want to talk to someone directly about your situation, we have a workers' rights hotline. That's at 415-404-9093. Usually those operate physically across the state, but right now they're operating virtually across the state. And I'll pass it off to my colleague, Jenna and Gerry.
hi, and thank you so much for having us. And so my name is Jenna Gerry, and I'm a senior staff attorney in Legal Aid at Work's Work and Family Program. So while George will cover everything under the sun as it relates to unemployment insurance, I'm here to really answer questions about our other state programs that people who might not be as familiar with, but can really help during these times. And so that's going to include our state disability insurance and paid family leave programs, which are entirely employee-funded programs in the state of California that nearly all Californians pay into and can actually access during this time if they themselves are sick with COVID-19 or caring for family members sick with COVID-19. Also can touch briefly on the paid 6-day provisions, not only under our state laws, but under the new Families First Coronavirus Response Act that was recently passed that allows for eligible employees to receive up to 80 hours or 2 weeks of paid 6 days. So if you're currently working, but you need to stay home for COVID-19 related reasons, including childcare or school closure, you now have that option. So again, as George said, we're happy to take your questions, but if there's anything we don't get to, please check out our website and lean on us if you need further help.
Well,
Yeah, can I make one more plug on actually Jenna's section, which is that that the Family First Coronavirus Response Act also has up to 10 weeks of paid leave if you need to take care of a child who's out of work right now, and you're still employed by an employer right now, and that will be paid by the federal government to your employer. Your employer will pay it to you, and that I think is maybe the most underutilized or underknown resource that's available to working parents right now.
Well, and thank you for highlighting that. And that honestly is why we are here tonight, because there have been some really important steps that have been taken by the federal government and by our Congresswoman Porter. And we want to make sure that our constituents are getting connected with every resource that they are entitled to. So thank you for being here to answer some of those more detailed questions as we go through the night. Congresswoman Porter, we have a couple of questions for you on the CARES Act. And actually, the first couple are not related to unemployment, but I know that these are questions that we're getting in our office quite often, so I'm going to raise these with you. So you mentioned the stimulus checks that folks can expect to get, and you mentioned that those are starting to appear in people's mailboxes and in people's bank accounts now. So can you just clarify for our viewers, our listeners, how will people be getting their checks, and what do they need to do to get a check?
Yep. Thank you so much for that question. So for most people, the majority of people, they will not need to do anything to receive these economic impact payments. The $1,200 for individuals, the $2,400 for married couples, plus the $500 per child. It does phase out toward the higher income levels. So particularly for an area like ours where the cost of living is high, some people may not see the full benefit, which is something I've been pushing back on hard in Congress to try to expand the amount of the benefit, given how high our costs of living are. But the good news is you don't need to do anything for most people. You should see the direct deposit from the Treasury Department hit your bank account. And today I was returning the calls of constituents who'd reached out to me for help with small business, with unemployment benefits. And I had 2 constituents tell me that this morning they received those economic impact payments in their bank account. So I encourage people to check their bank account. You will get a letter from the Treasury telling you that you've received this payment and the amount of the payment, but we're trying to get the money out as fast as we can. So you actually need to look at your bank account balance, and if you see a little bump in it, that's what it's going to be. Look for a direct deposit from the Treasury. For people who do not receive direct deposit refunds or have their tax payments debited out of their bank account, those people may have to wait a little bit longer to get their direct payments. And the IRS has set up 2 different portals, one for people who do not regularly file income tax. For example, maybe people who live solely on disability benefits and their income is low enough that they're not required to file taxes. And then another web tool for people to look up where their payments are and to provide information. And so if you go to the Treasury's website, treasury.gov, there's more information about those 2 lookup tools. They just rolled out today, so I'm sure that there are probably a few bugs, but I'm hopeful that they'll be helpful to people going forward.
Terrific. And then one quick follow-up on that subject is, so what do I do if I think I should be getting a check, but I haven't received one?
Yep. So it's helpful, I think, not to use the term check, because most people are getting a deposit. So we just want to make sure people know what to be looking for. So again, if you have direct deposit information on file with the IRS, you should be receiving that money in the next, either today, you should have gotten it tomorrow, in the next couple of days. If you haven't gotten it by a week from today, I would say it's time to follow up. And you can go to that new web tool that the IRS and the Treasury Department has set up at treasury.gov, and you can give the IRS information. People who file taxes where the IRS has an address, has everything it needs, but who don't get direct deposit, they will get paper checks. And I think those are probably going to take another week or 2 at least to roll out. And discouragingly today, we learned that those checks may be further delayed because President Trump is holding them up to have them printed with his name appearing on the checks themselves. So the paper checks may come a little bit later, and now it looks like a few more days are being added onto that by the president's decision, which I think is really unfortunate given how much families need this money right now.
Well, thank you for that update, and thank you also for your focus, as you said, on ensuring that we've got accountability and oversight in how this money, the money in the record $2 trillion stimulus package is being spent. We've heard that this is not kind of the end of the road in terms of the work that Congress is going to do to continue to help all Americans and Californians through this crisis. Can you give us any kind of preview of what may be coming next in a follow-up stimulus package and what you're working on?
Yep. So at the federal level, one of the things that we know is that we need to do more. We already to keep people on the payroll, to help businesses continue to keep workers getting paid, even though their companies or businesses may be shut down. So Congress, in the past legislation in the CARES Act, enacted something called the Paycheck Protection Program, and it is for small businesses, that is those with up to 500 employees. It also includes certain nonprofits. And what they can do is apply for this Paycheck Protection Program. It's called the PPP. They can apply to that through an SBA approved lender, which is everything from small community institutions to the nation's largest banks. And businesses can receive money to, in essence, the federal government is covering the cost of the paycheck for the business to keep those workers on payroll. That's a way that we're trying to prevent people from finding themselves needing unemployment benefits in the first place, because that system is already both operationally and fiscally challenged. We've had a lot of businesses in our area and across the country want to use that Paycheck Protection Program. So Congress's top priority right now is trying to add additional funds to that Paycheck Protection Program so that as many small businesses and nonprofits and others who qualify are able to get that benefit. The second thing Congress is working on right away is trying to provide additional monies to the state and to the cities who are facing really high costs in terms of doing public health work and other work to address this pandemic. So we're trying to provide more money to the state of California, and then also to make sure that smaller cities, like the cities in Orange County, are able to directly apply for and receive those funds. So I've led a number of letters with my Orange County colleagues trying to make sure that it's not just the cities of 500,000, 500,000 or more, but that we include cities the size of Irvine, the size of Laguna Beach, the size of Tustin, Mission Viejo are able to directly apply for this funding. These cities need our help right now, just as much as larger metropolitan areas. So those are some of the things I've been working on, along with a big push for accountability, pushes to make sure that frontline workers receive the protective equipment that they need and are protected if they blow the whistle because of unsafe working conditions. And then finally working to try to push the president to use the Defense Production Act to increase the supply of ventilators and personal protective equipment that we have available to people right now.
Well, as I said at the onset, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your tireless work on behalf of all of our constituents. It's making a huge difference for families all across Orange County. I'm going to jump in now to a couple of detailed questions that we've gotten on applying for unemployment and how it works, how long it takes. So starting with, I just lost my job. How do I apply for unemployment insurance? And this is one that I can take, and then I'll field some others, Jenna and George, to you. So the fastest way to apply for unemployment benefits in California is online. You Google EDD, which stands for Employment Development Department, and that's who handles unemployment insurance claims here in California. Follow the instructions on the website. You can also call them, 1-800-300-5616. But it's much quicker to apply online. And as we said at the beginning of our meeting, they are experiencing record numbers of claims. We've had 2.7 million Californians who've applied for unemployment insurance just in the last 4 weeks. So the fastest thing to do is to apply online. And if you're having trouble getting through, if you're having trouble understanding where is my claim, what's the status, am I approved, or I've been denied, but I think I should be approved, my office is here to help. We get constituent calls every day, and we're able to work with EDD to help speed claims along and to help resolve issues. So please also reach out to us as a resource. So let me ask a couple of more detailed questions. So how much money, and George, I'll turn this to you. How much money will I get if I am eligible for unemployment insurance or for pandemic unemployment assistance?
I'll mute again. So for most people, the amount of benefits you'll get from unemployment insurance or pandemic unemployment assistance will be similar or the same. And that for unemployment insurance, it'll be between $40 a week and $450 a week. And then you'll get an additional $600 each week between the first week of April and the last week of July. So and you'll also be able to get those unemployment insurance benefits for up to 26 weeks plus an additional 13 weeks under the CARES Act. And if your claim ends and you're still on unemployment this year, or still unemployed this year, you may also be able to then go on to pandemic unemployment assistance, depending on your circumstance, and get additional benefits.
Okay. And how long do I have to wait to start getting my money?
So you will get paid for each week that you're unemployed, starting from the first week that you're unemployed or underemployed. But you will not get your benefits for unemployment insurance for about 3 weeks at a minimum. So you have to wait, but you will get that money eventually. The pandemic unemployment assistance application is not yet available. So if you're not eligible for unemployment insurance, and you need to access pandemic unemployment assistance, which is the program for people who are not eligible for unemployment insurance for a variety of reasons, including that you're self-employed. You have to wait till April 28th to apply for that, but the payments under that system should come to you much quicker, within 48 hours. And I'm happy to answer some follow-up questions about the nuances between those two programs, because it's frankly a little confusing.
Yes, and we just did get a question. Why isn't PUA, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, open yet? Which I'll respond to. So here in California, we have been moving as swiftly as possible to implement every element of the CARES Act, including PUA, which is just so critical for so many folks, particularly here in our district. And the current timeline for implementing that is, as George said, April 28th. Actually, the governor's press conference focused today on this subject, and the labor secretary joined him to share the plans on rolling that program out. So the bad news is that we're still 2 weeks away from that application being live and online. The good news is that once that application is live and online, claims will be processed much more quickly than the usual 3-week turnaround. So claims will be processed and paid out within 24 to 48 hours under the PUA program. And then the second bit of good news is that although we know people need money now and need money in their pockets now, when benefits are paid out, they will be backdated. And they are eligible for being backdated in the case of COVID-19 related claims all the way to the 1st of February. So again, if you're waiting to apply for PUA, then you can reach out to our office and we'll ensure that you're alerted as soon as that application is open and available. And now we have a couple of more detailed questions that are somewhat related to the provisions of the CARES Act that Congresswoman Porter walked us through. So I think some of these specific examples just help people to understand who's eligible and how it works. So Congresswoman Porter, I'll start with you on this question. I am a self-employed architect. My business has gone to zero. So am I now eligible to file for unemployment insurance?
So you are, under federal law, you have been made eligible for unemployment, but states administer the unemployment insurance. So as Assemblymember Petrie-Norris was explaining, within about 2 weeks from now, around, I think you said April 28th, we expect the pandemic uninsurance program to be up and running. So you'll apply at the California Department of Labor site for that pandemic uninsurance, which is what expands unemployment to cover self-employed people and gig workers. It's tough to have to wait this time, but the good news is once you get approved, once that program's up and running here by the end of April, as Assemblymember Petrie-Norris and others have said, you should get your money within 24 to 48 hours, and it will be dated back. So you'll get a larger sum because you'll get the retroactive benefits. But that program Congress has done its part in funding the program, but now the states are having to implement portals to be able to accept and process those applications. I know it's very, very hard to have no income coming in, so I also encourage you to reach out to your mortgage company to ask for an extension. Irvine Company, as a landlord, we've worked very hard with them to get them to agree to provide some hardship assistance and deferral of rent. So I really encourage people, from my background as a consumer advocate, to be very proactive in reaching out to their banks or financial institutions and asking for extra time before so that these payments don't become late, you don't get hit with late fees, and you don't have a pile up of consequences. So the federal government's doing what it can, the state's doing what it can, and you should be able to apply for those benefits by the end of April at the state portal.
Thank you. And George, I think you wanted to add something.
Oh, I would just say that there's a lot of complexities when it comes to self-employed workers, and one thing that I'd notice that if you're not sure about whether you're under California law, you're truly self-employed, or you were misclassified as a independent contractor by a company that you work for, the safest bet right now is to apply for state unemployment insurance today. In 2 weeks time, once we know more about how pandemic unemployment assistance will be implemented by the state, the right option for you at that point might be to just go the pandemic unemployment assistance route. But for now, if there's any doubt as to whether or not you're eligible for unemployment insurance, we're encouraging people to apply now, and you can always withdraw your claim with no penalty, as long as you've not accepted benefits yet, which won't happen in the next 2 weeks because it takes 21 days to process a state claim. And some people who other than people who might be misclassified, some people who might be eligible even though they're self-employed are people who had prior W-2 earnings, or people who are both have an independent business and work as an employee at the same time. We've been getting a lot of calls from people who are, who need multiple gigs to get by, and those workers should definitely be applying for unemployment insurance now and not waiting.
Got it. So what I heard you say there is the safest bet right now is if there's if there's any confusion at all about which category you fall into, apply for unemployment insurance now, and then in 2 weeks' time you can apply for the PUA program, and EDD will help to determine which one is the best program and will secure you the most benefits.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And
Okay.
in 2 weeks' time, when you apply for PUA, you may have to withdraw your UI claim, but we'll know more about the exact functioning once the system is actually up and running.
And then we got a very specific question, but again, I think sometimes these specific examples help highlight the more universal case. So self-employed artists don't have the ability to file for unemployment because the EDD website doesn't reflect our issues. I applied for unemployment anyway over 3 weeks ago. Then I heard I had to be turned down before applying for PUA. I haven't heard anything yet. What should I do?
So I can answer this one, and this is not the most satisfactory answer, but it's the best answer, which is right now there's some people right now are gonna have to be patient. And it sounds like this person's gonna have to be patient, and they're likely gonna get denied. Their unemployment insurance claim is gonna get denied if they are a self-employed artist, and then they'll apply for pandemic unemployment assistance in 2 weeks. So I've been encouraging people as a general matter to be patient with EDD because they're dealing with an unprecedented flow of claims, and they have a very difficult job and they're trying their best right now, but also to be persistent. So there's going to be times when if you get denied and you don't think you should have been denied, you should appeal. If you don't think wages that you have earned are reflected in your claim. So every single person who applies for unemployment insurance gets what's called a notice of award, and it should show all the wages that you've earned in the past 18 months should be on that piece of paper. If that paper doesn't look right, you should reach out to the Employment Development Department, and there are instructions on our website about how to best reach out to them. The general message is that if EDD is processing your claim, let them process your claim. But if you're getting a message that doesn't seem right, you need to get back in touch with them.
Yes, and I think the thing I would add to your point about EDD being overwhelmed with claims and us all needing to be a little bit patient with them is also to say that the governor, the legislature, we absolutely acknowledge that the current wait times are not acceptable, and that while this is an unprecedented crisis, we need to do more and do better in order to meet this for folks who are desperate. And so just today, the governor announced that he'd signed an executive order to expand EDD's hours to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Every day. And we have moved a total so far of 1,200 staff members from other departments in the state government in order to increase the EDD workforce. The reality is that almost overnight we went from a period of record low unemployment to an unprecedented high number of claims, and we will continue to do more and better to meet those and to get money in people's pockets as soon as possible. Quick question, another question about the CARES Act, a slightly different subject. So in the case of exhausted benefits, are the additional 13 weeks offered by the CARES Act from state and federal money? Are there any exclusions? Congresswoman, can we start with you on that?
I don't have the exact answer to that, so I'll let George and the folks at Legal Aid at Work, which is a wonderful resource, answer it. But I did want to flag one thing before I have to go to my next meeting, which is that we know when people lose their jobs, for many, many workers, this is also going to mean a loss of health insurance and the possibility of facing very expensive COBRA as a way to continue your health care benefits. So 2 things are going on that people should be aware of to help with healthcare right now. One of them is that Congress is working to provide funding so that families can better pay for the cost of COBRA to keep their existing doctors and their existing coverage when they lose their health insurance. So be sure to watch for that COBRA notification and know that the federal government is working hard to try to help families pay the cost of those premiums. The other is that there's a special enrollment period right now through Covered California, and so that there are options for people to go on to the exchange and get health insurance during this period, because for so many workers, their health care is tethered to their employment. Also, reminder, if you're in a married couple, for example, and one of you loses your employment and insurance, that is a change in life event that allows you to contact your employer under federal law and add that spouse to the other person's insurance. So it's an important reminder right now to don't miss those deadlines. If you have a change in circumstance, make sure you're asking your employer, for instance, to see if you can cover your spouse if you haven't been, for example. But I'll let George answer this specific question about how the extended 13 weeks kicks in for those who've already been on benefits.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. So if you have not yet exhausted your claim, those 13 weeks should become accessible to you automatically. If you have already exhausted your unemployment insurance claim and your benefit, and you applied, your benefit year expired in after July 2019, then you will be eligible for the 13 additional weeks, and you should be able to get those additional weeks backdated to the date that you lost employment or became underemployed. But that process is not yet available on EDD's website, and we are hoping that the state hurries up and gets that going, because those folks need benefits as well.
Yes, and we are pushing on that as well, and we'll continue to do so until we get that done. Okay, a couple of other kind of scenario questions. Gloria, I'm going to ask you to respond to this one. So I'm a cook. The restaurant where I work is still open for takeout, but my hours have been slashed. Are there any benefits that I can apply for?
Thank you. Yes, because of the reduction of hours, you do qualify for unemployment. We encourage everyone to apply, bring all the information or have the information ready of your employer and the distinction of what you used to work versus what you're currently working, the rate that you were getting paid, and the basic math that we're utilizing to track that is hours times weeks times rate. This is how we are being able to apply for those who have been limited in hours.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. George, did you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, I just, as a rule of thumb, I like to say that if you're earning less than $600 a week, you may be eligible for unemployment insurance and should apply. Some people who earn less than that may not end up being eligible, but if you're earning less than $600 a week now because of a reduction in hours, you should apply. And you also will usually need to be working around 75% of your normal workload to be eligible. So if you've lost just a few hours, you may not be eligible. And I think Jenna also might have something to add here.
Yeah, I just want to remind people who are still employed and are working, but something comes up related to COVID-19 that doesn't allow you to work the hours you are scheduled, including if you need to care for a child because of school or childcare closure. If you work for an employer with less than 500 employees, you are entitled to the new emergency paid sick days and extended paid leave through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So if you're needing time off for your own sickness, you're going to get your full pay up to $511 per day, and that's paid directly by your employer. If you're needing time off to care for a family member or a child because of the child or school closure, you're going to get 2/3 of your pay, up to $211 per day. And again, those are paid directly by your employer, but your employer can seek reimbursement from the federal government through tax credit. So in the end, it should not cost them anything.
Thank you, Jenna. And thank you, I want to say just thank you and sign off to Congresswoman Porter. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us, and for all that you do for our community. And we're going to continue to answer the questions that are coming in on the Facebook Live. So Jenna, I think this is a question for you and picks up on what you actually just said. So my kid's school is shut until the end of the year and I can't go to work. Can I get unemployment? Anything else?
Yeah, so yeah, this builds off just what I said. So if you're currently employed and you cannot go into work or telework because of a child or school closure, and your employer has less than 500 employees, you should ask your employer to use your emergency paid sick days, which will cover the first 2 weeks of the time you need off. And then after that, you'll get an additional 10 weeks of paid leave to continue to do that. If you've exhausted that, or you find yourself working for a large employer that isn't covered under the federal law because they have more than 500 employees, or you're currently unemployed, you can get unemployment insurance if there's no other care options for your child and school continues to be closed.
Okay.
And just to add to that, if you become ineligible for unemployment insurance for any reason, you should also be eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance. But you should try unemployment insurance first. And
okay, another question. Under COVID, can an employer furlough an employee so this is from the lens more of an employer or small business owner. Under COVID, can an employer furlough an employee so that they can apply for unemployment insurance, but allow the employee to keep working part-time? Some businesses can afford payroll but can't pay benefits, and employees want to keep working at least a little.
Yeah, so what an employer can do is an employer can, if workers' hours are cut by an employer and they're making less than $600 a week, they will be eligible for unemployment insurance. Employers can also apply to with the Employment Development Department for what's called a work share program. And the governor just today announced a program to expand that program. And a work share program is an excellent option for workers and for employers. It will give workers more money than they will get on traditional unemployment. It will allow them to keep working. It will allow them to keep their benefits, and it will allow the employer to reduce their payroll costs. So I cannot emphasize enough that if an employer is trying to do well by their workers and do well by their business right now, they should be trying to enter into a work share agreement with the Employment Development Department.
Absolutely, and yes, as you mentioned in today's announcement, the governor also highlighted his desire to expand that program, and I think the way that he describes it is employment insurance, and so I think that is going to be an area of focus as we look for opportunities. I think that we are hopeful that there's going to be some expansion on the federal side for those supporting those sorts of programs. And then we'll also be looking at that from the state level in terms of ways that we can supplement. And like you said, ensure that employers who are doing right by their employees can, that we provide incentives and reward them for that. And we know that the best thing that we can do to maintain stability and position both businesses and workers to thrive once we come out of this crisis is keep as many people as possible in their jobs, and so that is certainly the overarching goal. Okay, one other question. My husband is on Social Security, but he has a job with a local small business that supplements his income. He's been furloughed by his employer. Can he now file for unemployment and still get his Social Security? I don't know if that's for George or Jenna.
I can take that. The answer is yes, you should still apply for unemployment insurance. And Social Security you do have to report when you're applying and accessing unemployment. You're going to have to certify for benefits each week. But part of the certification process is to report your earnings for that week. But Social Security benefits are not the type of earnings that will reduce your unemployment insurance award. So,
okay, I think that's really important information for folks that are receiving Social Security benefits to understand that your UI benefits will not decrease your Social Security benefits. I receive W-9s only from my clients that send me more than $600 a year. What about all my clients that pay me but do not supply W-9s? Do I need to have, what proof can I provide in order to apply?
So I think that's gonna be one of those questions where we're gonna have to wait a little bit. That workers, as long as that worker is truly an independent contractor, they're gonna I think they're gonna have to wait to apply for pandemic unemployment assistance, and they should be able to at least get minimum benefits through their own attestation of earnings. But in addition to their own attestation, they might need to submit additional evidence. I think that self-employed individuals right now who are, one thing that everyone can be doing is collecting their documents and just getting a good sense of how much they've earned in the last 18 months. So we're looking at the October 2018 through the present.
Okay, so October 2018 through the present, people should gather as much documentation as they have, but at least for an initial award that can be based purely on, you said, an attestation?
Yeah, my understanding is that that it can be based purely on an attestation, but that you'll eventually need to give that evidence to the state. So I wouldn't, and you also want your statement to be as truthful as possible. So there's no harm in digging through your documents now and getting the numbers right.
Right. Okay. So use the next 2 weeks to have everything in order so that you're in a position to apply straight away on April 28th.
Definitely.
I was furloughed. However, my job then offered a redirection of duties, which I turned down since it didn't specify any guaranteed hours and was offering a much lower wage. Can I still apply for unemployment insurance?
You can definitely apply for unemployment insurance. You should just be honest about, you should just be honest when you're answering all those questions. But if you're furloughed, you were laid off, and then you were offered, it sounds like you're offered a new job that was substantially below your customary work. And I would need to know slightly more about your situation to give you rock solid legal advice, but it sounds like that it was reasonable to turn down that job offer, and it shouldn't affect your ability to collect benefits going forward. I would again suggest calling our hotline, our workers' rights clinics at 415-404-9093 to get specific advice about your situation.
Okay, and then I have another question that actually, if you just provided one of the answers for, but applying for unemployment sounds very confusing. Can someone help me? And Gloria Alvarado, I'm gonna start with you.
And the answer is yes. The Orange County Labor Federation is providing assistance for not only our members, but the community at large. We're asking, just to be safe, that you call and make an appointment. Our number is 714-385-1534. Once again, 714-385-1534. We'll be more than happy to help you through the whole application. You will leave our office with a printout so you know what you answer and you have everything in front of you. And we will also support you in the follow-up. There's reports that you need to file, and people get nervous when they see the letters arriving, rather be via regular mail or emails. And so we will help them walk through the follow-up as well.
Well, that is such a tremendous service, and I want to thank you for that, Gloria. And George, you started to talk about the support that your organization provides. So can anyone call that legal aid hotline, or who's eligible to get help from you?
Yeah, so there's some limitations in terms of we largely represent low wage workers, and there are income guidelines for workers' rights clinics, but our receptionist will direct you to some other services we provide for higher earners, including Jenna's team. The Work and Families program has higher income limitations than our workers' rights clinics do. So we can, if you call us, we'll probably be able to help you out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so folks listening, in addition to the Orange County Labor Federation, the workers' rights hotline, as I said, my office is here and available to assist and connect people with resources and help folks navigate what is a very confusing process. And we want to make it as easy for folks as possible. Now, Jenna, I've gotten a few questions that I think are in the area of disability insurance. So I want to ask you a few of those before we have to wrap up. I tested positive for COVID-19 and I can't work. How can I pay my bills?
Yeah, so this is the perfect situation where we're extremely lucky to be a handful of states across the country that actually has a state disability insurance program that's been in place since the 1970s. So if you have been getting paid on a paycheck in the past 5 to 18 months, you almost definitely been paying into our state disability insurance program. You can verify this by looking at your pay stub, and you'll see a deduction that says CASDI, and that will ensure that you have been paying in. And you therefore qualify, if you're diagnosed with COVID-19, to receive state disability insurance. This is administered through the same agency that does unemployment insurance. It's the Employment Development Department. But it's just a different set of money that they administer. So and importantly, I really want to stress this point, because it's a separate pot of money that's entirely employee funded, it does not have the same restrictions for undocumented workers. You have the right to state disability insurance regardless of your immigration or citizenship status. And that is different than unemployment insurance, which comes with federal money. So this is available to undocumented workers as long as they've been paying into the fund. And that means they've been getting paid on a paycheck. And it does require a medical certification. So your doctor will have to certify that you've had a COVID-19 diagnosis, or it's their medical opinion that you shouldn't be working because you are currently sick. And you can get up to 52 weeks based on your doctor's advice of how long you should be out. And it will provide you with 60 to 70% of your normal weekly wages, depending on your income. Right now, that ranges from $50 to up to $1,300 a week is the maximum you can receive.
Okay, so I'm self-employed and I have COVID. Can I apply for disability?
Yeah, so this goes to the same issue regarding whether you actually are self-employed or you've been misclassified. If you are actually self-employed, the only way you can access is if you've, prior to this, been paying into the DIEC program, which is a disability insurance elective coverage. This is something you've had to have voluntarily gone to the EDD's website and signed up for and are paying premiums on. If that's the only way you're going to get the disability insurance that's self-employed. However, as George has mentioned, as it relates to unemployment insurance, many workers across the state of California have been misclassified as independent contractors, and many of these are gig workers. And for them, it's the same. You can apply for state disability insurance. You will most likely get a denial because they'll show that you have no wages because you've been getting paid on a 1099. But you can then appeal that, and the EDD will start an investigation. If they determine you've been misclassified, you then become eligible for disability insurance benefits.
Okay. And
can I add one little detail that some people forget, which is that you can toggle back and forth between these benefits. So if you get sick for 2 weeks, but then you're still unemployed, or you're unemployed and then you get sick for 2 weeks, or then you have to take care of a child, you can switch back and forth between paid family leave, disability insurance, and unemployment insurance. Frankly, it should be easier to switch between them, but you can switch between them.
Okay. So you can switch between them. So for example, if I get furloughed now because of COVID-19, I can apply for unemployment insurance. And then if I get sick over the next couple of months, I can then apply for disability insurance.
Exactly.
Now, but can I receive unemployment insurance benefits and disability benefits at the same time?
No. Right now, the answer is no. And that's very important, because when you're certifying for unemployment insurance, you're certifying that you're willing, able, and available to work, but you aren't working for many of reasons. Where when you're getting state disability insurance, you're certifying that you're unable to work because of a health condition. So you're making different assertions on those two applications. So while you can get them one after the other, you can't get them at the same time. There is some potential issues that may arise with the new pandemic unemployment assistance program and the type of workers that covers. But right now, don't worry about that. Just if you're sick, go for disability. If you're not sick, go for unemployment insurance.
But if you are truly unsure about what benefit applies for you, you can apply for both to see what you're eligible for, as long as you're not taking from both. So
okay, so you can apply for both. You can toggle between the two, but you can't receive them at the same time. Okay. I'm a construction worker. My job site got shut down. I'm looking for a new job. Where should I go? I can take that, or if you guys want to start, and then I can add on. Gloria, do you have anything you'd offer on that question?
Yes, as a matter of fact, UFCW 324 here in Orange County, who represents the food and commercial workers, is actually letting us know that some of the union grocery stores are hiring personnel, and we encourage everyone to apply. So that's Stater Brothers, Ralph's, Food for Less. There's websites available and information available on our website. And once they are hired, we encourage them to call local 324 immediately so that we can also add them to the benefits of being a union member.
Well, thank you for that. And there are many industries that are looking for workers right now. And some of the fields where we've seen really high demand are healthcare, the grocery industry, as Gloria said, agriculture, and logistics. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, or maybe last week, Governor Newsom announced the creation of a statewide new job listing site, onwardca.org. And the goal of this site is to match folks that may have been laid off of one job with a job in an industry where there really is huge demand because of this COVID-19 pandemic. So again, that's onwardca.org. Let's see, I got laid off from my company. I've applied for unemployment insurance. Is there any other help I can get from the state? So Jenna, you walked us through disability insurance, which is relevant for folks that that are actually sick from COVID-19 or something else. Are there any other programs or resources that you would highlight to people listening at home?
Yeah, I would just highlight paid family leave, which is a section of state disability insurance. It's the same pot of money, but it's a separate program that allows you to get wage replacement if you're off of work because you're caring for a family member who has a serious health condition. So you yourself are not sick, but you have a family member, and that includes grandparents, siblings, parent-in-laws, grandchildren who are sick with COVID-19 or another serious health condition, and you need to take care of them. You can get paid family leave for up to 6 weeks, and that's going to go to 8 weeks starting July 1st. It's the same wage replacement rate as state disability insurance. So you'll get that 60 or 70% of your normal weekly wages. And that is also administered through the EDD, and you can apply online as well.
And I'll just add, we're both attorneys and employment law attorneys, but there are some benefits outside of wage replacement that people should look for. As the Congresswoman mentioned earlier, if you should go to you should look at coveredca.com, Covered California, to get Medi-Cal or exchange-based health insurance plans. You can apply for CalFresh for food assistance, and you can go apply for CalWorks for general assistance if you've lost your job and are eligible for those programs now. And then there's, people should also be looking to their community food banks, and if you are still employed or you otherwise are of means, I cannot encourage you enough to either donate to a local food bank or donate to a fund supporting undocumented workers who have much more limited access to support right now than the rest of us.
Yeah, and I would just echo on that undocumented workers. The governor's website, the covid19.ca.gov, has a great immigrants' rights guide for all resources available to immigrants during this time, not only as a worker, but generally for housing and healthcare, and addresses those specific concerns that immigrant and undocumented community might be facing during this time.
And I just want to add to what George was saying about CalFresh, which is California's food assistance program. So I think that the income thresholds for CalFresh are actually a bit higher than people might assume. So the income thresholds to be eligible for CalFresh are approximately $2,000 in earnings a month for a single person, and about $4,300 a month for a family of 4. So to find out more about that program and to apply, Google CalFresh is the easiest way to find it. It takes about 10 minutes to apply online, and that is another important resource. For families with young children, there are school nutrition programs available. So even though our schools are physically closed, schools are still very much in session, and most districts, and actually all the districts in this area, are providing bagged lunches and in some cases breakfasts for students, and they're available for pickup at the school site or other community locations. So to find out more about that type of assistance, you can contact your local school district. And I would say that there are a tremendous amount of local programs and resources. And again, my office can be a connector and help put people in touch with our local food banks, our local food pantries, Meals on Wheels, which is there to assist our seniors and is doing such critical work during this time. And once again, to echo what George said, if you're not someone who is in need of these programs, the need right now all across our community is greater than ever before. And I think the thing that gives me so much hope in this moment of crisis and just restores my spirit every single day is the way that people all across our state and all across our community are stepping up and stepping in to do their part, whether that means volunteering to deliver meals for seniors, or sewing masks for other folks in our community, or for those who are able, making donations to help families get by in this time. We have a long road ahead and we have a tough fight ahead, but we can and we will get through this together. Thank you again to all of our panelists for joining us tonight. Your information was so valuable, and the work that you do in our community is absolutely critical. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us as well. We'll look forward to catching up with you next week. In the meantime, stay home, stay safe, and stay strong.